G'day everybody. Today's video is on how to have an amazing plant collection for free. So I'm just going to go through my own collection because about half of what I haven't paid for, so I'll just go through and explain what I've got and how I've got it. And I'm going to start with seeds. For instance, these Inca berries here were originally grown by a friend, and he gave me some berries and I saved some seeds, and I've been growing them successfully from seed for about 4 years now. So these are generations and generations on from the original seeds that I got. And stone fruit, I guerrilla gardened all most of the stone fruit I grew this year, except for the avocados because they'll need a bit of extra care up here in the mountains. So whenever I eat a piece of fruit, I just plant that big stony seed straight in a pot and wait until next spring, and they just come up like clockwork. I know there's a lot of ways to grow stone fruit, but that way always works for me. If I plant the seeds straight away after eating it, or in the 2 or 3 days after eating it, in one of my many pots, I just slip it down the corner of a pot, and next year it just pops up and I dig it out and pot it on. Now all these beautiful native plants I've grown from seed. Some of them are from just walking around the street and collecting seeds from beautiful trees as I go, and some of them I've spied out in nature reserves and collected the seeds, and they've all come along really nicely. And these styrofoam pots, or these styrofoam boxes that I get from the supermarket, they're really good for putting whole seed trays in and seedlings in, and you can fill the bottom up with water and they won't go dry. I don't know if you can see the water in there. And these orchid trees here, I got the seeds when I was passing through Swan Hill, and I didn't even know what they were till recently, but I just found out they're beautiful orchid trees. And rue grows beautifully from seed. If you see someone growing it in their front yard and it's hanging over the fence, grab some seeds or ask them if you can have some seeds. Also citrus. I do the same with citrus that I do with stone fruit. So I've given all my big citruses away, but I still have a fair few that have come up this year. So after I eat an orange, a mandarin, a lemon, grapefruit, any kind of citrus that I like, I plant the seeds straight in one of my pots, maybe 1 centimeter or 2 under the ground or under the earth, and they just come up like clockwork as well. Sometimes they come up in a few weeks and sometimes they come up in a few months. I don't really take notice until they're up. So any organic vegetables that you get, if the seeds are developed, just pop them in the ground if it's spring or summer, and vegetable seeds will come up pretty readily. Now I'll move on to cuttings, I guess. So I do lots of my basil from cuttings, and I also grow it from seed, and it's so easy to just do a cutting. I'll see if I can give you guys a little example. So this little stick here, you just break it off, break the leaves off the stem. So I broke those bottom leaves off at the node there. Trying to focus in. Oh well. And I would just plant that straight in the ground. And Bob's your uncle, you've got a new basil plant. I would also keep it wet and in the shade for 3 to 4 weeks until it starts growing, and then I would slowly introduce it to the sun. So you can do that with so many herbs and plants. Lemon verbena grows really well. All this white sage I've done from cuttings. Succulents, of course, are a great way to start with cuttings. And all this lavender and rosemary I've done from cuttings. All these beautiful Chinese lanterns that are about to go to flower are done from cuttings. So, what other plants have I got for free? See, I've done these blood leaves and collis from cuttings. More citrus, rue, night jasmine that I got a cutting from my neighbour Maria when I was living in Melbourne. Now these weren't free, but these dahlias were from an op shop. I think maybe $3 for a bag of bulbs, and I didn't even know what colour they would be. Lavender is also another one from cutting. These African marigolds, I saw them growing in a woman's front yard when I was living in Richmond, Melbourne, and they're just about to flower. And I asked her for some seeds, and she gave me some, and we became great friends. And I'm still growing them to this day. That was about 5 years ago. See all these Chinese lanterns? I collected the cuttings from people's front yards just as I was wandering through streets. This beautiful pink one, I forget what it is, maybe some kind of yarrow. I pinched a little bit out of a massive patch that was in someone's front yard. Chinese lanterns. With most of my cuttings, after I've taken the cutting and put it in a pot of earth, I'll then put that pot in a shallow bowl of water, just so it doesn't run out of water while it's growing roots. These are some cuttings that are just big enough to come out of the water and see a tiny bit of sun every day. See how you can see the old growth and then the new growth, which lets me know it's grown some roots and can handle a bit of sun, because the roots will help it soak up moisture and stay hydrated. So I've always got cuttings on the go. You can also go to community gardens, and if things are going to seed, they're usually going to seed within the thousands. So pinch a bit of seed, ask whoever's running it. Most of them you can just go in there and take a little bit of something, especially seeds. So check out local community gardens, see if there's any seed you can pinch, plant that, or pilfer, not pinch I should say, in the gardening world. What else? This purple sage was originally growing in my mum's neighbour's yard, and I asked him for some cuttings, and they worked, and I've made cuttings from those cuttings. Now it's everywhere. This beautiful aloe, if anyone knows what it is exactly, I'd love to know. That was growing out front of the vets when I was taking my cat Sandal to get looked at, and I pilfered a couple little pups off the side, and they've grown really big and multiplied, and I've picked them off and given them away. And then I went back there one day to get some more, and they had dug it all out and planted a whole new garden there. So I'm glad I got those. This is my pride and joy at the moment, and I have no idea what it is. I pilfered it from someone's front yard, just a little branch like this, about 9 months ago. and now it's massive and I love it. I also pilfered this, which I don't know what it is, but I've seen it around a lot. It's about to go to flower. These were all just hanging over the fence at different people's front yards as I walked past. I remember my first garden teachers that weren't family members when I was about 15 years old taught me about pilfering. And they also taught me to spread rare and unusual plants around to make them not so rare anymore. What else? All this beautiful basil. In some streets I've walked down, all this beautiful perennial basil pokes through the fence of Indians and Greek people's fences, and so I've built up a really nice collection. These chilies were originally grown by a friend, Sade, and I saved some seeds from those chilies and have grown them on, and I've had such a big harvest. These are just the leftovers this year. What else? Turmeric. I brought some turmeric and there was some little nubs left over and I grew them on and started digging them up. Oh, potatoes. I had such a big harvest of purple Congo potatoes and I just planted the little ends that didn't look so good on some of them, so I cut them off and ran them through the soil, and these are some ones that I must have missed that have popped up again. And almost any kind of potato, just make sure it's organic, heirlooms even better. And anything in the mint family, mint, lemon balm, catnip, all those similarly looking mint plants are really easy to grow from cuttings as well, and they're just everywhere. Pineapple sage. All the sages seem to be strong from cuttings. The white sage is a little fussier. It may be time to wrap up this video, but I have to show you this awesome flower. This was growing in someone's garden, and I watched it, and when it finally went to seed, I collected the seeds and put them in a jar labeled Pretty Flowers and totally forgot what they were and grew them this year. And when they bloomed, I was just so impressed. And I'll be growing them on next year as well. This avocado tree has just grown on its own from an avocado pip I must have just thrown in the garden. This ornamental pear tree grew from a chunk of mulch, freshly chopped mulch that I put on the garden 2 years ago. A plum tree that's just grown on its own in the vegetable garden. And maybe when I leave this place that I'm renting, they'll want to keep these trees, or if not, I can take them out for them. So I may have run you through my basic plant collection that I got for free. Succulents, of course. They're a great one to share around and to pilfer when walking around neighborhoods. And always be respectful when pilfering. When I break off a branch or a twig off a plant to make a cutting from, I always pick a low-hanging one that's in the way, one that's crowding it. I never pick the best branch on the plant. I'll always find one at the back, one that's getting hit by people walking past. And if it's too perfect for me to pick from, I'll then stalk the place, and when I see the owner, I'll ask the owner if I could please have a cutting or some seeds from that plant, because I don't want to damage the beauty of it, because there's nothing worse than coming out to your front yard and someone's ravished it. This tomato just grew on its own. I had the chook cage here last year. It must have been a seed that grew from one of the tomatoes I fed the chook. And the stem, this is one stem here, has so many flowers on it. I've never seen a tomato stem with this many flowers. Parsley is another good one that some people grow in the front yard, and the seed stalk grows so tall and hangs over, like this one here, and grows so many seeds. It's a nice easy one to find. And usually when a plant goes to seed, it makes thousands, especially herbs and vegetables, so it's such a good thing to grow them on. And if they're growing in your area, the seeds would have changed genetics a tiny bit to climatize to the area, so there's a good chance that the seeds will grow even happier and healthier than the mother plant. Oh yeah, elderberry. I found an elderberry tree. Winter's coming on here in the high country of Victoria, Australia, so the leaves are starting to yellow. But elderberry seems to be a really strong cutting. A lot of decorative plants grow well from cuttings. They might need a little more love and care, like this variegated hydrangea. I've grown a few cuttings from this cutting. Australian native pepper. It's supposed to be easy to grow from a cutting, but I haven't had much luck yet. The blood leaves, the avocados. This is a native